Welcome to PM in the PM. This is the weekly Monday afternoon podcast where I take a news item and look at how it links to the ACCA performance management syllabus areas. The benefit of listening is by hearing about real-world application of what you're learning. It means you're more likely to remember. It will mean you've got better answers to application questions. And of course, this will help with both PM and APM. Given that COP29 finished on Friday last week, I thought that was a good reason to talk about environmental management accounting. Now, what's COP29? COP29 was held in Baku, and I had to look up what it stands for. It stands for the Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it's good that they use COP for short. And at these conferences, there's lots of commitments made by countries on how they're going to either stop harming the environment or make the environment better. So how does that tie into performance management? Well, in syllabus area B, under advanced costing techniques, environmental management accounting is one of the topics. And it's really important that we as management accountants understand that organisations will have an impact on the environment, and that impact can be positive or negative, and there's reasons why we should take account of that. Some of them are financial, some of them are perhaps a bit more altruistic, but we know everything we do, particularly if we're manufacturing or even just simply using electricity in our offices, we're having an impact on the environment. That impact will also affect our image, so the members of the public who buy our services or our goods are more and more expecting positive environmental impact by organisations. From a financial point of view, if we can identify an environmental cost, something that is impacting on the environment and costing us as an organisation, we can look to try to control that or even reduce it. Also, it helps us in terms of pricing. If that item or service has an impact on the environment which costs the organisation, then that cost should be included in the price of that item. When I was young, if you bought a bottle of fizzy drink, you would pay 10p extra for the drink, and then if you brought your bottle back, you'd get your 10p back. And funnily enough, in the UK, there's a really strong indication that the UK government are going to bring a deposit return scheme back into place. However, when we are looking at the environment, there are certain challenges that we face as management accountants. One of the key ones is the costs are often hidden. Electricity is a good example. We can work out how much we spend on electricity, but we don't know how much of that is related to the environment. We can look at how much water we use, but what's the environmental cost of that? How do we put a number against that? That's one of the challenges. In an organisation, particularly a big one, if they are allocating overheads such as electricity, how are they doing that? Are they doing it based on the number of people, or is it being allocated in a way that reflects actual usage by different parts of the organisation? It's a real struggle because a lot of these environmental costs are hidden in the accounts. There's another challenge around how we quantify environmental costs. If we do something as an organisation that affects our reputation negatively, how do we put a number on that? If we do something that's positive and is welcomed by the public and we get more customers, how do we identify the real financial benefit of that action we've taken? So quantifying is another real challenge. In performance management, we try and help understand the costs related to the environment by splitting them into 4 categories and under 4 headings. The first is prevent. How do we prevent an environmental cost? What can we do to not incur that cost in the first place? And there's a cost to doing that. That could be for our procurement processes. We incur a cost in order to prevent having a negative environmental impact. Maybe we carry out feasibility studies or invest in staff training in order to prevent these environmental impacts before they occur. We also look at detection costs. These are costs which we incur as an organisation by complying with standards, complying with rules and regulations. This could be through monitoring, through inspection, through site surveys. We can also look at costs under internal failure costs. This is the cost of activities that we take to prevent an impact on the environment. This could be recycling scrap, making sure our waste disposal is done correctly. And then finally, there's the external failure. This is where the organisation releases something harmful into the environment. And our costs could be due to some clean-up operation, there's going to be reputational costs, and sometimes fines and penalties that an organisation faces. An oil spill in the ocean is a clear example of an external failure cost. And in performance management syllabus, there are 4 accounting techniques we can use to help us in environmental management accounting. We can take an activity-based approach. That's where we understand the drivers of those environmental costs and we can look at controlling and managing those costs. There's a technique called flow cost accounting. This is where we divide material flows into several categories and we work out the value and the cost of each of the material flows. The aim of this is really to try and reduce the quantity of materials that go through a process. And then there's life cycle costing. This is a cradle to grave approach. Before we embark on something, we understand what it is going to cost us right from day one up to the point when we end. And that could be clear up operations, that could be decommissioning. And we look at it across its whole life in order to more accurately introduce pricing. But also, it could mean we decide not to do something because we have no hidden costs that are going to come and surprise us. And the last of the 4 techniques is input-output analysis. The principle behind this is what goes into a system must come out. And because there's waste in a system, we take what comes out that we use, and the difference between what we put in and that is considered waste. And we can put a financial cost on that. So environmental management accounting, it's a relatively small part of the syllabus, but it's very likely over time it's going to grow as we have more and more requirements on organisations to take into account the impact on the environment. You can get narrative type questions and calculation questions in the exam. The calculation questions are generally quite simple, nothing as complex as the variance analysis we do in another part of the syllabus area. So hopefully that little visit to environmental management accounting, which I justified talking about because of COP29, hopefully that's given you a reasonable overview and insight into this aspect of the syllabus. Thanks for tuning in to PM in the PM. I hope you found this episode informative. Please do share this with colleagues who you think might find it useful. And until next time, this is Richard Guyver signing off.